All right.
Good to go there. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I appreciate you jumping on today. My name's Curtis Magnuszewski, Senior Cloud Sales Manager, and I'm joined by Cheston, who's our Staff Cloud Solutions Architect. So we're all part of the formerly VMware Cloud Provider Program, or VCPP, which, if you don't know, we had updated and changed the naming of the program and our providers to cloud services providers. So both what was formerly our rental and MSP models are now cloud services provider, cloud builder, as well as cloud services provider SaaS. So whether you're standing up infrastructure on the cloud builder side, delivering services, if you're just utilizing VMware's SaaS-based services like VMware Cloud on AWS or Cloud Health, or doing a combination of both of those. So happy to talk to you today about Cloud Director Availability, accelerating cloud disaster recovery and migration services. And today, what we're going to cover is really going through a market overview, taking a look at the data from the analysts of, what we're seeing for disaster recovery as a service, as well as migrations. Cheston's going to go into Cloud Director Availability, talk through the product, also share a recorded demo that we have. And then lastly, we're going to wrap it up with some of the assets and go-to-market resources that we have available specifically to you as the cloud providers. So DR as a service has significantly grown in 2022. As you see, there's an $8.8 billion market for DRaaS. And we're expecting that over the next 7 years to 2027 to have that grow at a 21% CAGR up to $23.5 billion market. So there's not many solutions today that have such a high CAGR. And why is this? I guess what's driving that? And we all know over the last few years with COVID and the pandemic, getting remote offices up and running, that hybrid workforce that we've had and remote workforce. Now companies are saying, well, now I need to protect these workloads. So achieving that security and compliance in those environments is crucial. And this is what we refer to as cloud chaos. So we have on-prem, we have data and workloads and apps in the cloud. We have them now at the edge sites. How do we manage and secure and control all these environments and all this data? So we know that as cloud grows, this market's going to continue to grow. And certainly we know the number of cyber attacks globally are not going to start minimizing. We're going to see increasing growth on that. And, sadly, that's really become the norm for our world. So overall, just being able to recover is absolutely mandatory for this. A conversation that I've had with a lot of my providers is on repatriation, and we've been having these discussions now really the last few years. So when you look at cloud and I guess the different phases of cloud, initially it was, let's take our workloads, we need to move it to a cloud. We're going direct to the hyperscalers, we're pushing all our workloads there, or any cloud workloads that we want to move are automatically going to one of the hyperscalers. We now see ourselves in this second phase of cloud where we're seeing this repatriation. We're seeing more of the emergence of sovereignty and sovereign cloud, as well as our, specifically our local cloud providers, all of you that are on the call today. So in this study that was done, this survey, 54% of companies move workloads or data away from the public cloud to some other venue. So we see this cloud chaos filtering back to on-prem, and of that, 36% state security concerns. So obviously this has an effect on business continuity, your ability to make that security stance. So bringing back on-premise, customers feel they have that more control of the data and of the environment. And 23% stated that public clouds are struggling to meet sovereignty needs. So a lot of you on the call today are out of the US, where it's not as big of a concern. Certainly customers do want their data typically to reside at a data center that's close or within a couple hundred miles of where their office is or where they reside. but we're certainly seeing a lot more of this in EMEA and APAC and other parts of the Americas. And then lastly, 16% of this was due to cost. So the complexity, the lack of transparency, public cloud is not always the best place for the workloads, and oftentimes becomes too expensive. We see this with customers that want to work with our cloud service providers, our VMware providers. They're setting up 3 to 5 year terms. They know the predictability of what my bill is going to be every month. And then obviously if they're going to add new services, new offerings, or add substantial incremental workloads, that might change, but they're amending their agreements, and they're going to know what that increase is going to be. So you're not getting those out of control egress charges and other things that you might see within the hyperscalers. Important to note for this, companies in that $10 to $100 million range were most likely to migrate away from the hyperscale public cloud. So 73% back on premise, and 27% co-location. So co-location, good opportunity for our cloud services providers. And it's not a big surprise. They have their own IT department, the ability to manage those workloads. Latest web survey by 451 indicates almost 46% of IT and line of business decision makers expect cloud migration spending to increase over the next 12 months. And notably, almost 34% saying that it's going to remain the same in that next 12-month period. So this just highlights an increasing opportunity for DR and migration. So when asked, what the major challenges companies face with DR, cloud storage budgets continue to rise, and data is growing at a rate of 28%. And cost of outages is going up year on year. Frequency of DR testing is going up year over year. And we've seen 61% of outages cost more than $100,000 in losses. And 11% claim that losses were over $1 million in 2022. So approximately a third of the outages took more than a day to recover from, and really organizations now are maintaining that gold copy of the data to recover from in the event of ransomware attacks, which is another big concern for companies. And it's really driving organizations to spend more and more on data protection. All right, now all of these issues will be compounded in years to come. So by 2025, IDC predicts, the total amount of digital data created worldwide is going to rise to an astounding 175 zettabytes. So, per IDC, total data expected to more than double in size between 2023 and 2026. And enterprise data will grow more than twice as fast as consumer data over the next 5 years. So this, once again highlights, the need for customers to be able to protect this data. If customers are not able to protect what they have today, they're going to be in trouble in years to come. That the amount of data is going to grow, and they're going to need to work with a cloud provider like yourselves to be able to manage all of this. And with that, we'll pass it over to Cheston.
Thank you, Curtis. Let me share my screen. How's it looking for everyone?
Good.
All right. Well, thank you again for everyone that's here. Again, my name is Cheston Hay, Senior Cloud Solutions Architect with the Cloud Service Provider Program. So now I want to just take this opportunity to kind of talk to you about the product itself. Curtis gave you some good insight into the market, but I want to talk more about why you should consider VCDA. Also, some of the key advantages that VCDA gives you as a cloud provider, as well as your customers. And then I want to spend a little bit of time going through some of the key features that are in our 4.5 release. So just for the sake of using fewer words, you won't hear me say VMware Cloud Director Availability this entire time. You'll hear me refer to it as VCDA. So just notating that. So let's talk about why. Why do we want to consider VCDA? That's kind of a frequent question that we get from a lot of prospective cloud providers, and then even our current ones that may be using other products. And so we'll just highlight a few of those reasons. So for one, VCDA is simple. I've used various DR and migration products, and by far VCDA is the simplest that I've used. But I don't want you to confuse simple with meaning that there's a lack of features, because that's definitely not the case when it comes to VCDA. So while VCDA is simple, it's still very feature rich, and it's specifically made for our cloud providers and their customers. We have native vSphere tooling and integration, and plus we have a consolidated interface. And what I mean by that is that VCDA can be used across several types of clouds. And no matter which one you choose to use it on, you're going to get a same familiar, simplified experience. So that means that no new training is needed just because you use the product on a different cloud than another. So that's very key. Also, when it comes to just getting things going, getting the VM protected, we can do that in 5 simple steps. It's as simple as selecting our destination site along with the specific workload that we want to protect, then selecting our destination VDC or vCenter, and then we select our storage policy. And so once we do that, we select our SLA profile or policy, and then we confirm it. And as simple as that, that virtual machine or workload is protected. VCDA is also scalable. It adopts the same VMware validated design architectures as our other products. And so we're able to scale to meet the needs of any enterprise deployment that's necessary. And so with the product with VCDA, we can easily scale up to 30 replicators. What that would allow us to do is have up to 15,000 active protections for a VCDA environment. And so as you can see, it's really designed to meet the demands of scale that our cloud providers tend to reach because they support many large customers. Moving on, talking about storage flexibility. VCDA, the way that it works, it uses policies, and these policies are applied to the underlying storage in your vSphere environment. So it really makes it possible for you as a provider to create storage tiers, as it were. So you can have various storage tiers, or you can have dedicated storage options for your customers. We also support local and native S3 provider storage. And then we also have a flexible retention policy so that you can manage any type of replication archive that you have. Another thing that we have is multi-cloud support. Now, we realize that customers today, many of them are not tied to just one cloud, right? They're kind of doing a mix. There's a mix of on-prem, they may be using you as a service provider, maybe using one of your clouds, or they may be using another VMware-based hyperscaler cloud. Well, no matter what choice they decide to make, they get the same look and feel wherever they're managing VCDA. So as far as today, as far as hyperscalers go, we support VMC on AWS, Google Cloud VMware Engine, Azure VMware Solution, and also Oracle's OCVS. Also, when it comes to performance, we talk about enhanced performance. The performance depends on the SLA. And so the SLA really more or less is determining how many slices of data that we're going to keep. And so that also affects our recovery time objectives. So we have, what we're able to do is store multiple, what we call point-in-time instances. So it's a little bit different than journaling, but it allows us to enhance performance because a lot of the consolidation of those dips is already done for us the way that it's handled. We also support native VMware file formats. So that means that there's no conversions that are needed. Everything is using the standard VMDK. So that really just kind of helps to speed up any of our recovery process. And then one final thing that I'll mention is the broad ransomware support. Because of our tight integration that we have with our other products like VMware NSX, it allows us to kind of broaden out the security spectrum with the product. And so it helps us to better secure our infrastructure and then do all of this without any third-party integrations. So now we kind of covered some of the high-level benefits. Now I want to move on to some of the key advantages that you as a provider would get by using vCDA. And we'll kind of break this up into 3 different categories. So we have integrated, cost-effective, and then it's provider-focused. Now, when we're talking about integrated, we're meaning the integration level. We have direct integration with VMware Cloud Director, which is our multi-tenant cloud platform, as well as vSphere natively. And so what this does for a customer, it really makes it simple for them to manage. They can do everything they need to do right there natively within their vSphere UI. So it makes management easy, it makes onboarding easy, and it gives them a kind of one vendor end-to-end solution. When it comes to being cost effective, from a cost perspective, it's very competitively priced. So for those of you that are familiar with our product usage guide, there are point values that are associated with products. And so vCDA is 10 points per protected virtual machine. But now another thing that I really want to call out and make emphasis on is that migrations are free. So they're of zero charge, which means that you as the provider can onboard your customers without any additional charge. Now, when it comes to other mainstream products, they're going to charge you for both migrations as well as those protections. So this really gives you an opportunity to get them into your cloud and to build services around that. The fact that it is simple, we again emphasize the simplicity of vCDA. There is a single converged platform for them. So it really reduces the total cost of ownership as well as any operational complexities. Because the UI, the experience is the same across multiple clouds, that really minimizes the need for any training if you decide to use it in various locations. So again, it's very cost effective. And then finally, it's provider focused. You know, vCDA was a product that was built from the ground up with you as a provider in mind. It was designed and well suited to meet the need of allowing you to maintain control, but at the same time provide self-service capabilities for your customers that want that level of touch. With that being said, it also is designed with multi-tenancy in mind. We know that cloud providers have multiple customers. We don't want a solution that a la carte where you have to deploy a set for each and every customer. We are allowed to do things at a more granular tenant level. And so you don't have to just take a blanket approach when it comes to your DR solution. So now we've covered some of the high level benefits and some of these key advantages of using vCDA. Let's talk about some of the features, some of the key features. And so these are the ones that we're talking about. We'll talk about our vSphere DR replication, and then we'll go on to one-click migration and so on and so forth with the others. So moving first, our first feature is our vSphere DR and migration. So vCDA can now replicate tenant vSphere workloads between a dedicated on-premises vCenter to a provider-hosted vCenter instance. So that means, yes, vCDA can now do it all, because no longer do we have this prerequisite of needing to have a cloud director environment. So this is really a great opportunity for you as a provider to expand your service offerings by not having to, for those customers that may not want to be in a multi-tenanted environment, they can now replicate to a dedicated private cloud vCenter that you're hosting for them. When it comes to the features, we still maintain feature parity as if you were using VCD as an endpoint for DR and migration capabilities. So that means that cloud providers, you get a consistent, integrated, and standardized experience across your migration journey. And so this feature, it really offers you the opportunity to manage your RPOs, your retention policies, compression. You're able to monitor the overall health of the environment. And another great thing about this feature is that it can be enabled right in the vSphere UI. So from the 6.7 or 7.0 UI, you have that vSphere client plugin that you can enable it through, or you can enable it straight with the vCDA portal. Now, when it comes to vSphere 6.5, it is supported, but outside of using the vSphere client plugin. With this feature, another thing I wanted to bring out is that there's no additional cost to you. So this is still a part of the Flex Core bundle. It has the same price of 10 points per VM and 0 points for migrations. So being that this is kind of a new use case, right? You know, this was a huge update, I would say. So with this extended use cases, cloud providers now have the opportunity to expand multi-tenant DR and migration across a wide range of endpoints. So we talked about earlier the various hyperscaler clouds that we support. Well, as you see depicted here, this gives you as a provider the flexibility to mix and match different types of services with different types of clouds. So you may only want migration services going to certain, maybe VMC on AWS, but still have your DR replications going to a vCenter that the customer may have on your cloud environment, a dedicated private cloud. So this just gives you a lot more flexibility in how you want to provide DR services for your customers. Now let's move on to our next feature, one-click migration. Now, VCDA, again, it's very highly competitive, but it also allows us to give manageability to the tenants themselves. And so this feature was made in a sense of helping tenants to get faster paths to the cloud. So one-click migration, what it does, it really simplifies what a customer has to go through in order to get a migration started. So it helps them save time. It gives them options to automatically run this feature with predefined criteria, as long as they don't need any advanced configuration. So you as the provider, you would predefine these profiles. They would simply select them, use them, and then you could easily make them accessible to your tenants. Now, let's move on to another key feature, 1-minute RPO. Now, with 1-minute RPOs, providers can now address mission critical workloads. Now, this is a feature, I want to give you fair warning. This is one that you certainly want to govern. It's not one that you just want to readily make available to all your tenants and just allow them to put 1-minute RPOs on everything. That's not what this is designed for. So look at this feature more so as a premium offer, and you want to price that accordingly because of the IO intensity that's required for this feature. Because of that, we do require all flash storage to be used. So before you activate 1-minute RPOs, make sure that you check all the compliances, make sure that you check all the recommendations that is provided in the Cloud Director Availability documentation. So now let's move on to our RPO compliance. Now, VCDA offers these RPO compliance reports, and it's more so used for you as the provider for troubleshooting. So what this does, it looks at the report and it makes a comparison in relation to what the tenant's RPO parameters are. So the report helps to identify any compliance or non-compliance that might be happening. So you can easily export these reports into HTML or CSV format. But again, this is not something that we want to use as a service, as it were, but more so just for you, for help you troubleshoot as well as monitor the environment. So moving on to advanced recovery settings. Now, in particular, what we're talking about are our networking and guest customization settings. Now, cloud providers and tenants, they use these recovery settings and helping them adjust certain parameters when they spill over to their destination location. And so with this feature, it's very intuitive. There's several other parameters that you can configure. We'll actually see some of those in the recorded demo, but you're able to easily configure your network that you want to connect to, whether you're doing a actual failover, you can connect to one network versus if you're doing a test, you can fail over to a separate network. You can do guest customization. Even you can do guest customization script. So you're able to input a script that you wanted to run once the failover takes place. And so like I said, you'll see a short demo of that. And so the final feature that I want to talk about are our SLA profiles. Now, SLA profiles allow for ease of manageability and applying a protection state to a workload. Now, SLA profiles are designed really to give you as a provider better control. So you're able to define multiple SLA profiles, and then you can assign those to one or more organizations for them to consume. And so this can be used when configuring new protections. So for example, a provider can have, let's say, one SLA profile that may allow a 24-hour RPO. Then they may have a second SLA profile that does a 15-minute RPO. And then from there, they can decide whether to only give that to one tenant or more. And so some of the properties that you can configure when creating SLA profiles, so you can configure things like your RPO time, you can configure your retention policy, so that affects how many point-in-time instances that you're going to save. You can configure whether or not you want to use compression, whether or not you want to delay the initial synchronization when you're doing a recovery. So you see that it's very flexible, a lot of granularity here to make things customizable for your various tenants and partners. So you want to see some of this stuff in action? So we have a recorded demo from our VCDA product manager, and it's going to highlight just first how simple it is to get a workload protected, how to create a protection. Then you'll see how a failover works. And then you'll also see some of the advanced parameters that you can create with your recovery setting. So let me stop sharing this and let me share the demo here. You know what, let me make sure I did the sound. Yep.
Now let's go through the steps that a tenant needs to take to protect one of their on-premises workloads to the cloud. First, of course, they need to deploy the Cloud Director Availability on-premises appliance and run the initial setup wizard that will register the Cloud Director Availability plugin into vSphere. Then we have a few options for operating the DR or migration self-service. First is to open the Cloud Director Availability UI and perform every action from there, from the management portal. Next is to right-click on one of the VMs and protect it, migrate it, or use a fast or single-click migration. And the last option that I'm going to use is the Cloud Director Availability plugin. Here, in order to protect the workload, we need to go to outgoing replications. As you can see, here we have two local sites available, which means we have connected this on-premises site to two clouds. It is possible to connect a single on-premises site to multiple clouds if needed. To create a new protection, we go to outgoing replications and click on new protection. We need to authenticate with the org credentials that are available in Cloud Director. And select the VM that we would like to protect. Pick the right destination VDC and storage policy. And then we see the list of available SLA profiles. They are a set of predefined settings that tenants can use. And based on the criticality of their workloads, they can pick the right SLA profile that will optimize their cost and, of course, the usage of resources at the cloud site. And also what we can see here is configure settings manually. This is because my replication policy allows configuring custom SLA settings. So I can modify one of the existing SLA profiles and customize them according to my needs. But in this case, I will stick to the predefined. If I have any placement or sizing policy, I can pick them from here, exclude disks, or configure a seed VM if there is an older version of the VM at the destination site. With that, we review the summary. If everything is okay, we just click finish and the replication is being configured. We can track its status in real time, what is the progress with the task, and what is the exact stage. of this replication. Now we can see that it's synchronizing. It will take some time. This is the so-called initial synchronization. In the meantime, while it's synchronizing, we can go to the recovery settings. And here we have two options for configuration. First is all the networks and network adapters of this VM that we have selected. We can configure them to an isolated or any other available network in this cloud organization. Then we can provide the IP address and we can re-IP the VM if needed and perform all these operations. In order to have the IP being changed, we of course need to have the guest customization enabled. And for the guest customization, if we are protecting or migrating between two Cloud Director clouds, we can check use source settings, and it will use the settings that we have at the source side. But in this case, since it is vSphere, we don't have guest customization. So if we want to perform anything, we need to activate it and then modify the settings. For example, we can change the computer name, SID, we can reset the password, perform domain operations, or provide a script that will be executed on the failed over VM. We need to put the script body as the example shows here. So in general, all the available guest customization settings are available for modification for the failed over VM. And since Cloud Director Availability provides the option to test the migration or failover, we can put the same or different settings for the test operation. You want not to interfere with the production environment if there is any risk of that. So after we apply, we can just fail over the VM and it will show up at the destination site. Here, as part of failover, we can select whether we want to use the default settings or consolidate the instances, whether to power on the failed over VM, and whether to use the recovery settings that we picked or override them with connecting the VM to a specified network. Again, placement and sizing policy, and that's about it. If we have multiple instances, we can pick the one that we would like to use and just fail it over.
All right, I think that's pretty much the end of that.
And one more thing to mention is that this is also available even for vSphere destinations. If Cloud Director is not available at the destination site, we can also perform these operations like migration or replication between between vSphere source and vSphere destination. And the majority of the settings are already present there. And we are working towards feature parity between the two destination types. I think that's all. Thank you very much for watching the demo.
All right. Well, Curtis, I'll hand it back over to you at this point.
Yep, let me go there. Okay, look good?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so we have a couple minutes left. We're just going to close out talking about some of the assets that we have for you, specifically for cloud providers to leverage, and then resources to assist with the go-to-market. So, this is where we can help provide you, the ability to understand the overall business opportunity and the pricing, help you to understand the amount of investment that will be there that you need to make as the provider, how much you can charge for the service based on the volume of customers and size of the workloads and what they're predicting over time. It allows you to see kind of the sort of revenue impact and margin that you'll get out of the service, and really what you can charge those services for your customers. So, we have the calculators for on-prem to cloud, cloud to cloud DR, and then specifically where we get a lot of questions around the storage piece. And calculating the amount of storage needed for those solutions and offerings, which will be critical in the pricing exercise, and setting up those gold, silver, and bronze type offerings within your portfolio. Partners now have access to the Partner Demand Center and the ability to obtain these go-to-market kits. So we have one specifically for disaster recovery, as well as one for migration as a service. And these kits were specifically curated for cloud providers. They're unbranded. They're ready for you to put your own branding on. The sources are in Adobe files, really a high value asset for partners. I know that a lot of partners that I've worked with are kind of get started from the bottom as far as building up a solution, and it takes a lot of work, a lot of hours, and a lot of effort to help build these solutions and this go-to-market resources. So this gives you that starting point where you can take kind of that bare metal framework, so to speak, and build upon that, customize it as you wish. And some of the things that we have within that is a snapshot from the Partner Demand Center. The messaging, positioning, customer ebooks gives you the ability to train your sales team. So a nice whiteboard training that from there you can customize if you want to add in your other managed services into that training or upsell opportunities. It's a great framework to be able to start the training for your teams. And then all your typical one-pager infographics, videos, which you can brand and all put together into digital and social media kits to leverage. So great asset for everything that you're doing from a go-to-market perspective. And then one thing we wanted to note, as a DR as a service validated partner, you can take full advantage of this initiative around disaster recovery as a service validated partner. So you can take advantage of the ability for lead generation support, and this validation, which years ago we called Project Presto, and some of our partners kind of took advantage of this pretty early on. But there is things like lead generation support, and I'm not going to tell you you're going to get hundreds of leads out of this, but specifically what we're doing is when you become validated, you're going to appear in every vCenter console globally, and it's going to be under that cloud provider services tag. So what we do is we list your data centers that are closest to that specific vCenter console by IP geotagging those data centers. So now as customers go in, they're looking for a DR solution. They can pick a cloud provider that's within proximity to them. And clearly that's not always what you want. Maybe you want a data center that's further away or on a different side of the country or a different area. Certainly you can look through our cloud. They can look through our cloud services page, see that the data centers that you as a cloud provider has. But also what this does is generates a lead that's sent over to you. So that lead, you'll be able to then, obviously dig into the need of the customer and be able to help close an opportunity. And, we've had some providers get leads and close all of those leads just based on this feature alone. So great opportunity to take advantage of this. One of the key criteria for this is to have a minimum of 50 replications per month. So if you're looking for more details on that, we can work with your account team and provide all the specifics you need to obtain that validation. And then lastly, we're always looking for product reviews. So we're committed to our cloud providers giving them best support, best experience. We're always outside of this gathering feedback and surveys. Most notably, we have a survey out now. Getting feedback from our cloud providers overall on the program and product. So if you've received that, please respond and get back to us so we can help make sure that everything that we're doing is helping you to obtain new customers and put your best foot forward with our products and services. So this specifically here is through Capterra. You can earn a $20 reward just by leaving a feedback on the product. And if you see VMware Cloud Director Availability today, the overall rating is a 4.7 out of 5. So we've gotten some great feedback. It's an easy to use product, as Cheston walked through, and I think it's a great opportunity to add an additional lower cost disaster recovery as a service and migration solution for your end customers. So with that, we'll answer any additional questions that we have. Certainly, I know a number of my partners are on today, and Cheston as well, but continue to work with your VMware account team, your sales rep, and then your solution architect if you're looking for a deep dive, if you're looking to go through maybe the calculator, or you need additional help with those go-to-market assets. So thank you all, and we'll stick around a few minutes and answer some questions.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Do we have any additional questions in there?
I'm just going through to make sure I didn't miss anything that didn't answer in the chat.
I think most of them have been answered, except for the last one about WAN compression and optimization.
Okay, let me see that one. So you can enable that, but that's for protections only, not for migrations. So those that are for just for the protection. I should have called it out. I think I had it in my notes and didn't say that. So Ryan, you asked a question about using storage vendor replication. No, VCDA doesn't do that. So that's something similar. That's something that SRM does with array-based replication and the use of the SRA adapters. VCDA uses vSphere replication and basically block level replication. So it's more storage agnostic. We don't necessarily tie to a specific storage vendor. So that's the reason we don't use storage or array-based replication. When should I use SRM instead of VCDA? That's a good question, Steve. We get that one quite a bit. So, and Ryan actually had one of the top reasons why you might use SRM over VCDA. If you do need to do, or you want to do some type of array-based level replication, that's a use case why you would want to use SRM over VCDA.
Anything else in there, Cheston?
I think we just about covered everything. Again, if there are any more questions, always feel free to reach out to your account team. They will always be a great form of contact. They can put you in contact with product management if needed be, but they should be able to handle most, if not all, of your requests. But thanks again for everyone, their questions, and thanks for attending this session with us.
Yeah, thanks everyone. There'll be a short survey, a couple questions. So if you can fill that out after the webinar, we would appreciate it. And thanks everyone for your time, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.